What's up, everybody? It is Monday, November 18th, and today we are talking all things real estate. My name is Corey Evitz, and I am not a rock star. All right, guys, welcome back to Not a Rock Star with Corey Evitz. I am your host, Corey Evitz. We have a great episode lined up today. I'm going to be talking to my friend Celia Robertson. She is an extremely successful businesswoman. She started her own real estate brokerage several years ago, and she has grown that business from the ground up into the most successful real estate agency in Southern Illinois. So I'm pumped about this one today. Let me give you a little bit of background about how I know Celia. 5 years ago, she reached out to me to play a party at her home. And it ends up that they have this big annual pool party every year with all of her friends and family and a lot of her coworkers. And so I met her boyfriend Myron, and it was tremendous. We all had a great time, and I became very good friends with them. So now I play their party every year. Generally, we do that in August, and they also come support me when I play anywhere close to where they live. They're from the Carterville, Heron area, so they'll come watch me if I play in Heron or Marion or really anywhere close. But I really admire them. Myron is a retired state police officer, and Celia is an extremely brilliant person and a very hardworking person. She has a great story. So we're going to get into her story today. We're going to talk about specifics with real estate. We didn't really get into that last week when I had Tiffany Dawn on, because Tiffany is also a real estate agent. But last week we centered more around Tiffany's music career and the Bloom Initiative. But today with Celia, we're going to get into the nuts and the bolts of real estate. I've got a lot of questions. I've never owned a home. I've always rented, so I'm fresh out of the box. She's going to be educating me today in real time. Now, we're also going to talk about her early years growing up in Heron. We're going to talk about her father, who was a veteran. Her dad actually fought in 3 wars, World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. He was severely injured in Vietnam and came home and started a very successful vending machine business. And so his story is very inspirational. I know that played a huge role in Celia's development, watching the sacrifices her father made. That really motivated her to be the hard worker that she is. But also she does a lot of work in the community. She does a lot of charity work, and she really gives back to veterans. So we're going to get into all of that today as well. So guys, without further ado, let me introduce you to my friend, Miss Celia Robertson. I don't know what this car is doing, but you're making me look bad in front of a cop. Thanks, bro. So real quick, let me tell people how we know each other.
Okay.
You hired me, I think, in 2019 for the first time to play at your private pool party with your extended group of friends and family.
Has it been 2019?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
I remember it because it was like that year before COVID.
Yeah, it was.
So I just felt like I didn't have many problems in 2019. Then the next year, we did the party again, and I just felt like life was a lot different.
It was, but you know what? Nobody really worried about it. They still came.
Oh, yeah, the party was great. Party was great, yeah.
You know, I was concerned that we may not get anybody to show up because of COVID, but I thought, come on, guys, we're outside. It should be okay. And it didn't, no one did not come because they were afraid of COVID.
Well, in your party, what I had to do was go to just nothing but private parties for a while, but your party was ideal because it was outdoors. I could kind of be away from everybody else. Because my fear was like, if I do catch it, because I'm in a different town every day.
Oh, yeah.
I could be that person.
Super spreader.
Yeah, I could literally be that guy. But no, your party was great. But the first time I played for you, I guess you guys had kind of been seeing me play in this area.
Right.
And you were so nice and accommodating to me. And I remember seeing your home and how gorgeous it is. And I said to you while I was setting up, I said, you have what I want.
I don't remember that. But.
And you told me, this was very sweet of you. You said, you will.
Yeah.
You will have this. And then I don't remember, we just started talking about your life a little bit while I was setting up. And you said, well, you know, however many years ago it was at the time, might have been like 12 years ago at the time. You said, I just kind of went through a divorce and I decided to start my own company, and I started it from the ground up. And I was working the 14, 16, 18-hour days for the first few years. But now I have a successful business, and you own and operate a real estate brokerage. Is that how you say it?
Right.
So I have always been fascinated about that whole thing, how you built that business from the ground up. And then also just getting to know you and Myron. You guys are such good people, and now we're friends.
Yeah,
I mean, I know you guys
friends.
very well. But I definitely want to talk about the business and kind of the nuts and bolts of it, but also I want to talk a little bit about how you grew up, and then your father, who is a veteran, who started a very successful business. So yeah, I want to learn today. I don't know anything about real estate, but I also just really think a lot of you as a person. So
well, thank you. I think the same about you. I just love listening to your music, and you're very successful. You say Corey Evans, and they go, oh yeah, I know him. I saw him here, saw him there. And the thing that's cool about you is that you do sound like you're a big band, because you've got all the different instruments and the piano and the bells and the jingles and all the stuff going, and you sing very well too.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, I realized if I didn't sound like a band, I wasn't going to make band money.
Right.
So I had to work like a band
to
get paid like a band. So let's talk about your dad real quick. And I'm just going to kind of let you tell his story. You want to just kind of give us a little bit about his story in Vietnam, right?
Yes. Well, 3 wars.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he was in World War II, the Korean War, and the Vietnam War. And I'm the youngest of 3. My brother and my sister are 10 years older than me. They're 18 months apart. And they pretty much lived their whole life as Army brats. They traveled around everywhere. Germany, they've lived everywhere. I kind of was, the baby that came as the big surprise, and I wasn't the tail end of all of that. But I did live in Germany for a while, Oklahoma, New Jersey, New York. I traveled around until we ended up here when I was in the 7th grade. And the reason we ended up here is because Dad went to Vietnam and he got hurt. And it was a full disability, so we had to retire. So we came back to where he was raised and my mom was raised, which is Heron. So the story about my dad, yeah, he's got 3 Purple Hearts. He's been injured 3 times, but the one in Vietnam was really, really bad. He was a sergeant major, so he was pretty high ranking, and he wasn't allowed to drive the Jeep. Only the driver could drive the Jeep, which is a silly rule. I don't quite understand that. But that day they were going to get the lieutenant's luggage who had just flew in, and my dad decided he was going to drive, which is miracle number 1. So he's driving the Jeep, and as he turned this corner, he said, man, this looks like a place for an ambush. And sure enough, they came out. They thought the 19-year-old private was the high-ranking officer, and they killed him instantly. So he jumps out of the Jeep, and he rolls into this ditch, and he scurries down about 20 yards, and the guy came up to where my dad had jumped out of the Jeep. My dad had him in line. He was getting ready to shoot him, and his gun jammed. Yeah, so then he turned and just started firing, and it totally shattered my dad's right arm. I'll get to what they ended up doing with all that. So he walks up to my dad, and he had the gun pointed at his forehead, and he knew he was dying. And some Marines came down the road that he had passed earlier, and the enemy heard the Marines coming. Just as he pulled the trigger, he jerked, kind of like Donald Trump when he jerked, with his head, with the ear when he got shot. He jerked and it went through my dad's nose. And the Marines killed the Viet Cong, got my dad, got him to the hospital. Normally, in wartime, they do leave the hospitals alone. They don't usually bomb them. But when my dad was in a full body cast, they were bombing the hospital, had to take him down to the basement. I mean, could you imagine all the pain, the injury, being in a full body cast and having to go down the basement because you're being bombed? So that's another miracle that he survived that. So then he gets to Great Lakes Navy Hospital, and he spent 18 months, and they wanted to amputate his arm. And he said, No, he said, you do everything you can to save my arm. And they tried, and they did, but he could only use his thumb and his forefinger to grasp, and he couldn't lower it any further than like a, you can't really see, but 45 degrees. And right arm, and he was right-handed. So he was fully disabled, so he had to leave the service. And so he survived, and we were glad to have him. He lived a longer life, but he ended up dying from Agent Orange.
Man.
Yeah, it was like ALS. He couldn't talk, he couldn't move, he couldn't feed himself. It was horrible. I'd go every morning. I would go help my mom get him in and out of bed, and then go back when I'd pick the kids up from school and put him back in bed. And yeah, it was a bad deal, and they didn't get any compensation for that.
See, I didn't know if I should ask about that or not, because I didn't know how personal that was, but nothing.
No, we tried, but yeah, it's a bad deal. And I have such a passion for veterans, and in my business we do a lot of fundraising, and if it has anything to do with veterans, I'm all about it. So, and I could go on and on and on about this country and how we need to support our veterans, and they're living in the streets, and we give money to people who don't deserve it, and we should be taking care of our veterans.
Yeah, I 100% agree. We need to talk about that, actually, maybe off camera, because I want to start contributing. So I'm recording an album right now. It's very critical of like both political parties, but it's also uplifting. Like, hey, let's all come together and let's help our neighbor. But something that I want to do after the first of the year is start giving a portion of all the money that comes in, that has anything to do with the album or the merchandise for the album, to something that's helping kids and something that's helping veterans.
Yeah. Kids are. There's a lot of kids that are hurting out there too.
Yeah, and so actually I'm currently trying to help some people in Paducah doing something called the Bloom Initiative, and it's for musicians, but one of the things they do is sponsor kids to take music lessons that may not be able to afford it.
Yeah, I like that.
So that's a good starting point for me for the next few months, but I also want to start contributing to the vets. Yeah, my dad had 2 brothers in Vietnam, and my dad had a few rules when we were kids about like what not to talk about. And that was one of them. It was just like, don't ever ask a woman her age, don't ask a woman her weight, don't ask somebody who they voted for, and don't ever ask your uncles about Vietnam. And those were his top 4.
My dad didn't talk about it a lot. He would, if you asked him a question, he would answer it, but he didn't bring it up. But you also have to remember, I was very young when all that was going on. I would give anything now to sit down with my dad and ask some questions. Because now, as I've gotten older, and I kind of look back at history and how all that took place, and I want to ask him some questions. But, I was young.
Right. Yeah. I kind of have mixed feelings, because my uncle, one of my dad's brothers, is still alive, but I don't want to push it with him either. I mean, when I hang out with him, I want him to be happy, so I don't want to ask him.
Right. Bring all that sadness up. But don't you think the view, though, of the country about the Vietnam veterans has definitely changed? It's not like it was back in the 60s and the 70s and even into the 80s. I think there's more awareness of that war and what people gave up, what the veterans gave up. Well, my dad gave his life up for it. The country called and he went.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously I wasn't around for that, but I've been told too that the entire country has really come a long way with how we treat veterans, because I know a lot of people don't agree with things we've done in the last 20 years, but they don't take it out on the vets.
Exactly.
And
we have no control over it. It's not like we say, oh no, we're not going to do that.
And that's my thing too, is whether or not you agree with what our military's doing and everything they do, the only way to have a free society is to have a military. Yeah. So somebody has to be willing to sign up without really knowing what that's going to mean 3 or 4 years after they sign up.
Right.
They have to be willing to go. So just because a politician makes a bad decision, you shouldn't take it out on the people who are willing to give everything so you can live in this society.
I don't mind a politician making a bad decision if they really truly believe that was what was going to help the country. What I don't like is when they make those decisions because it's going to benefit them.
100%. Me too.
Yep.
Because you can't know everything. And hindsight's 20/20.
Right.
But when you see like the same handful of companies just happen to make all the money on everything we do,
yeah,
then that's when I'm like, do we really need to be sending $200 $1 billion to Ukraine or
No,
whatever.
we
yeah.
don't. But then again, I always have to turn around and think we still live in the greatest country in this world.
I agree, 100%. And
Yeah.
that's one of the things I love about you, Celia. So let's talk about your upbringing. I mean, you moved to this area. How old were you when you said you moved
I
here?
was about 12.
I gotcha. So do you consider like Heron, Carterville your hometown, home area?
I do. There's sometimes I think, gosh, Dad, why couldn't you have been from Hawaii or somewhere like that we ended up? But yes, you know what? There's nothing more beautiful than Southern Illinois. And because of my profession, I hear people that move into the area that say that this place is beautiful.
It is.
And it is. It is. And, you know, it's just like everything else in life, you take things for granted. You know, when it's here every day and you see right now we're seeing the beautiful fall colors. We have I love the 4 seasons. I hate cold. I hate it getting dark early, but I love our 4 seasons. So it's beautiful here.
Yeah, I love it here too. Specifically like Heron, Carterville, Marion. This is one of the areas I've been playing the longest. So I feel like I'm from here too. Like people just treat me like I'm.
Yeah, we're the best.
Yeah, you guys are awesome. Yeah, I love it. I mean, obviously love playing at home, Paducah Metropolis. I love playing up around St. Louis. I play in Huntsville, Alabama, and I really like it down there too.
Oh, I
But
do. I like Alabama.
these people are so cool here. And Heron is actually, we're kind of passing. There's where the Frenchman's Widow used to be.
Uh-huh.
That was the first place I ever played in Heron. And that was about a month, 6 weeks before I quit my job. And there were like a few shows in Heron right around the time I was quitting my job where I realized, hey, this is going to work. Like people were real excited and
Yeah, they just have to hear you one time and they know, well, this guy's pretty cool. And the thing about you is that you play such a variety of different music. You're not just country, or you're not just screaming rock and roll,
Right.
which I hate. I hate music that you can't dance or you can't sing to. I mean, what's the point?
Yeah. No, but yeah, I love these people, man. They've always been super supportive, and a lot of my really good friends I've made on the road are from like Heron.
Yeah.
Mr. Bill at Teddy's, I'm wearing his shirt right now. He always takes care of me. He's very fatherly.
Yes.
Like always takes care of me.
Yeah, my son worked for him as a bartender.
Yeah, he's a good dude too. All right, so you went to Heron High School, I'm
Yep.
assuming.
Yep,
Did
go
you
Tigers.
play sports?
I did not. I wish I would have, but back when I was in high school, it wasn't cool for girls to play sports.
Aw.
Yeah, they kind of looked at you as, you know, but I think I would have been decent at it. And, you know, you always say if you could live your life over, yeah, I probably would do it now. I would love to. But I love sports because I have 4 sons and they all were very talented and gifted with it. And I sat on many bleachers.
By the way, we're going to head towards Ziegler and just see what happens, okay? We're going to stay on this road.
We're good with that.
All right.
But I was a letter girl. I did represent. I was the I in Heron. Got out there on the football field, you know, and did our little routines. That was always fun.
Okay, I was going to ask. I didn't even know what that meant. Letter girl.
Letter girl, yeah. Herrin.
So you mean literally had the letter I?
I had the letter I. I used to say I was important.
That's pretty cool.
It was. You want to talk about cool? That's back now in football games. These cheerleaders get to wear pants and sweaters. Oh no, we froze.
So
we didn't have any clothes on.
November, like you're totally out there at the end of the season.
Yes, it was cold.
Gotcha.
It was fun.
And then did you ever have like a confrontation where they were like, "There's no I in team, but there is in Heron."
Only you would think of that.
Yeah. Well, there's that famous story of Michael Jordan.
Yes.
They're like, "There's no I in team." He said, "There is in win." Yeah.
I like that.
Okay. And so what were you doing between like high school, that age, and when you started the real estate?
Well, I worked at John A. Logan for a long, long time. It actually wasn't John A. Logan. It was the Southern Illinois Collegiate Common Market. It was an educational consortium of all the universities and the community colleges. So I was in higher education. We were just housed at Logan. I took care of the finances of that consortium. I have an accounting degree and an education degree from SIU. So I did that for a long time. And then we, believe it or not, were grant money and it ran out. So my father, back to my dad, he started a vending business whenever he came back from Vietnam, and he and my brother started it, and my brother ran it for the longest time. Then when my dad got ill, my sister and her husband took it over. He died, my sister's husband Jim, he died tragically in 1995 from an asthma attack that sent him into a heart attack. and she had to sell the business. Well, that's when my husband at the time, was in the coal mines, and he's about to lose his job. So we bought the family business, and so when I got laid off, technically, you want to call it at Johnny Logan, I started helping run the vending business. I took care of the books and the accounts and the ordering and that kind of thing. And I did that for a long time until the lovely D word gets involved, divorce, which ended up being a really good thing in my life. It's not like, I was traumatized from that. It was a fine thing. And I got divorced, and he wanted the business, so he bought me out. And I had to think of something else I was going to do. So it's kind of a funny story how I got in real estate.
And was that something that you had really considered before that? Or did that just, were you kind of like,
real estate?
Let me just Google and see what, I mean, like, how did you arrive at that?
I arrived because when I got divorced, I had a whole new group of friends, and I met a girl. Her name was Abby, and she had just started a real estate company, and she said, you know what? You'd be a really good realtor. I went, really? What do I have to do? She gave me a website, and 3 weeks later, I had my real estate license. That's how it started. Seriously. But she had her office up in West Frankfort. Well, I'm in Williamson County. So I'm driving to West Frankfort every day. I don't know anybody. I have no contacts. I did it for about 8 months, and I told her, I said, I got to get back into my own area where I know some people. And, no hard feelings. We're still very good friends today. So I did. I came back to Williamson County and started with a local franchise company, but this was back in 2008 when the market was crashing.
Oh, God, yeah.
Yeah. So guess what everybody was doing back then? They were trying to sell their house on their own because they were upside down. They couldn't afford to pay any commission. There's one of my real estate signs right there.
Nice.
They couldn't afford to pay the commission. And I did it for, I don't know, a year at that company. And I went, this is insane. We got to do something different. This is not working for me. And so I started, because everyone was trying to be a for sale by owner, I started a for sale by owner website. And it was really funny because she got wind of this, she being my managing broker at the time, and she called me in and she goes, I heard you started this for sale by owner website. And I went, I did. And she said, well, you need to take that down immediately. And I went, no, think about it. Think about what's going to happen. They're going to list it through my for sale by owner website. They're not going to be able to sell it. It's got to go on the MLS. I have a relationship with these people. They're going to list with me. So I'm going to pick up listings this way. She fired me instantly. It's the best thing that ever happened to me.
So that was the genesis of I am going to start my own company.
Yeah, it was because of everyone trying to sell it on their own, and I gave them an option. List with me. I'll still let you sell it on your own. You can still be a for sale by owner. It's called exclusive agency, is what that's called, instead of exclusive right to sell. Well, they couldn't do it on their own. They couldn't market it the way I could on the MLS and other things. So I ended up listing the house. I didn't charge 6%, 5%, 4%. I charged them $900 up front, and then I paid whoever brought the buyer the 2.5 that they usually would get, or the 3. And that's what started House to Home.
Okay, so I have so many questions.
Okay.
So I told you I don't know anything about real estate.
Real estate, okay.
And I've also never even bought a home. At one point I lived in 5 different places in 5 years, all like in Paducah. But that was basically just because of what I do.
Yeah,
like
I bet
traveling.
your friends hated moving you every time.
Well, I didn't have a lot of stuff until like 2 years ago. And then my buddy Sam that travels with me occasionally, he was like, bro, it looks like a squatter lives in this apartment. Like, you need to get some real furniture. So now, I mean, I've settled into the same spot for 5 years. I've lived in the same, and it's a very nice apartment. I am.
Yeah, you need a house.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we'll get to that.
Yeah,
because
okay.
I'll ask some questions at the end about that. But, like, I really don't even completely know. And my neighbor, Miss Crystal, she lived in the same building that I live in. But she owned her own condo in our building.
Right.
And she is a realtor. I don't even know what this entails. I mean, one of my best friends that I grew up with, he's a realtor. So, like, to me, the appeal of this, without really knowing, would be like, hey, I'm looking for a house and I just don't have the time to be driving around Western Kentucky or Southern Illinois looking at every listing, blah, 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 blah. Why not just leave this to a professional that can kind of cull this for me and say, Corey, I found 4 houses that might interest you? Is that kind of...
Yeah. This is what you do. When you meet a buyer, you're a brand new buyer, you don't know anything about them, they've sent you a listing, you go into it and they hate it. And they say, no, I don't like this, I don't like this. Okay, well, let's go down the road and we'll look at this one. Yeah, this is more what I'm thinking. That's all it takes. Then I know what they're looking for, and then I can start sending them things. When I see something come on the market, I'll go, this is what we need to go look at this. A lot of the times, I'll call them, I'll go, you need to look at this today, because this is going to be the house you love. And sure enough, they walk in. But it's just seeing enough houses and doing it long enough to be able to, you don't get that experience overnight. You got to sell a lot of houses to get to that point, as a realtor, I mean.
But you're basically in the loop, like your area that you service. You or someone on your team kind of has an idea of all the homes that are coming up for sale. I mean, like, do you guys basically just kind of always keep your finger on what's going on with listings? And
well, I'm at an advantage, my company is, because we have the majority of the market share around here because we're so big. And what we have is something called rapid reporting. And the minute we get, like, I'm getting ready to list a house in Carterville that's going to be, someone's going to be able to flip this house, and I'm going to put it on rapid reporting and go, hey, this is getting ready to come on the market in a day or two. And so we see everything that's coming soon. And so that we do have a little bit of an advantage there, is because we have so much of the market share. But still, it's the same thing. The minute you get it on the MLS, you also get a notification, because you can set it, the MLS is the multiple listing service. You can set, like, if you're looking for a house, I can set you up, and anything that matches your criteria would be sent to you instantly as soon as it hits the market. So the computer does all that for us. But like with us, the rapid reporting that we do is just because we've got so much of the market share. We can get it to the agents quick.
so let's say I come to you, and this may actually happen, although I don't want to leave Western Kentucky. I will say that.
Not licensed there.
You got to. That's
No.
got to be the next move. You got to do it. But let's say I come to you, and I'm like, okay, I'm looking for a home. You would probably ask me, like, basic questions, like, what are you thinking? Like, price range, or would you ask me that kind of stuff?
The first thing I'm going to ask you is, are you pre-approved?
Okay.
Because I am not going to go show you a bunch of houses and then you go to the bank then and say, 1, you can't get the loan at all, or 2, you're going to have to take your price range from 200 down to 100. And we've been looking at $200,000 houses.
I got you. So what I would need to do as a new client is I would need to just kind of figure that out with whatever bank I'm using or whomever, and figure out what I'm approved for.
Yes.
And come to you and say, okay, they've approved me up to $250,000.
Right.
And then would you ask, I mean, I'm guessing standard things like, how big of a yard do you want? Do you want an acre of land? Do you want a half an acre? Do you want a basement?
Yep.
Like, I mean, how many bathrooms do you want? How many people in your family? I mean, is it
Exactly.
kind of start with that?
This is a realtor's nightmare. You get someone, they're pre-approved, let's just say for 200, well, let's go a little lower. Let's say they're approved for 150, and they go, okay, I want a 2,000 square foot house with 4 bedrooms and an office and 3 baths. I'd like to have a basement. If it's got a couple acres, that would be great. And a pool. My kids would really love a pool, and my price range is 150,000. Oh yeah, and we want a certain school district. That's a realtor's nightmare, because that's never going to happen.
Do you want me to come over in the morning and make coffee for you too?
Yeah, all of that. Yeah, it's so you have to very delicately tell them you're never going to get that. For 150,000, you might get a 2-bedroom, 2-bath in a so-so area, no basement, no pool, no acreage.
Right.
So you kind of burst some bubbles sometimes. And once they get to going out and looking, they know then what they can afford. And a lot of times people won't buy; they'll just wait.
Oh.
Yeah.
I got you.
They'll wait until something changes in their life, or they get pre-approved, or the interest rates go down. That's been a real hard one, because when you used to be able to afford a $300,000 house when the interest rates were 2.5 and 3. Now they're 5 and 6. Now that same buying power is $200,000.
Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and ask about that. Again, I have a very limited understanding of this stuff. I knew there was what they call the housing bubble of like '09. I know about that, and obviously we went through a pretty big recession at the end of '08 into '09.
Right.
I can remember that. I was old enough to know what was going on at that point. I mean, can you give me explain to me, like I'm a hillbilly that plays guitar, just how that even works. Like, how does the market get to a point where banks are like, you know what, we ain't selling no one's getting a home unless they're willing to pay 6% interest? Like, how does that even happen? How do we get to that?
Well, the feds set the interest rate, the prime rate, and then we set our rates here a little over prime. So it's whatever the feds do. If they set it at 5, then we're going to be paying 6.
I got you.
You know. So, and then there's Freddie Mac and USDA loans, FHA loans. Those are all government-backed loans. They have so many rules and regulations. They change all the time. So when I get a buyer, I usually say, call your lender and he'll go over all the loans. He'll go over what your interest rates, depending on your credit score, what interest rate you get to. If you've got a really good credit score, your interest rate will be lower. So that makes a huge difference, is your credit score. Having no credit is just as bad as not having a good credit score.
Really?
Yeah, because they don't know if you're going to be able to pay if you're a good payer, or if you're going to pay your bills or not. If you've never had credit. Yeah, my son had to go out and get a credit card and use it for a year before he could even afford to buy a house, just to establish his credit.
That whole thing frustrates the heck out of me. So I've always had pretty good credit, but this year was a big investment year for me, and I knew that. I knew I'd been saving money for the last few years, got a nice emergency fund in place. Mm-hmm. I'm like, okay, this year I'm gonna take some more chances, invest in like 15 to 20 grand worth of studio equipment, and I'm gonna start paying some other people more to help me on the road. You know, I knew all this was gonna happen. And so I went to buy some equipment that I just didn't want to buy outright. And so I did the little finance thing you do through like a retailer, a music retailer. But I had to call 3 different times to get approved for the amount that I wanted to. But the way that this bank that this online retailer uses, the way they work is every time I would call and give them like some number, hey, I want this much of equipment, blah, 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 they would go ahead and go through the process of checking my credit score.
Your score.
And so they did it 3 times in like a 15-minute conversation. And so my score went from like 800 or whatever to like 640. I'm like, in a 15-minute conversation that happened to me.
And they need to tell you that.
They didn't mention it. I only know because I'm signed up for Credit Karma, and I just happened to click on one of the, plethora of emails they send me.
Yeah.
But I know as I keep paying that every month, and I'm paying on this van right now, I realize the score is going to go back up. But what if I really needed something in a pinch and I needed to get approved, and then my credit score dropped 150 points?
Well, that's one of the first questions that I ask if for whatever reason I'm having to fill out a credit application to get I had to do this just the other day to get water turned on to a house that needed to have the home inspection, and the seller had flew the coop. But we had to get that water turned on, and she goes, well, you're going to have to, under House to Home's name, turn it on, and we're to check your credit. I went, no, we're not doing that. See, because I know that.
Right.
Why would I have my credit checked for another person's water to be turned on for a home inspection?
Right.
But if I didn't know that, I would have went, oh, okay. So, yeah, I think your lenders should be forthcoming with those kind of things.
Yeah, lesson learned.
Yeah.
So I was wondering about that too, like, obviously there's all kinds of zoning things that have to happen when people build homes.
Yep.
And inspections when they're going to sell one.
Yep.
Do you kind of know, without naming names, and you don't say anything you don't need to say, but do you kind of know, like, well, if Bob's the one that did the wiring in the house, it's going to suck, so we don't use Bob. He's a sucky electrician. Like, I mean, do you know that, like, so-and-so did the plumbing? This guy's the foundation guy. He's kind of good. Like, I mean, do you pretty much know all the people that are building homes and doing electrical stuff? And
we do. I tell you what really puts us in a terrible, terrible, terrible position. If there's a builder out there that's really bad, and it's on the market, and you have a buyer that wants to go see it, your duty is to that buyer. You have to do due diligence for them. You have to put their needs before yours and everybody else's. And if that's the house that they want, you know how difficult it is to try to explain to them, you may not want to buy this one because this guy is really not a good builder. And if that were to get back to him.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's a terrible position to be in.
What about like electricians unions and stuff like that? Do you ever run up against like Mike's the one wiring this neighborhood, and he really sucks, but he works for so and so, and
Well, you can do your own wiring, or you can hire. They could hire you to come do your wiring. You don't have to hire a licensed electrician to come do your work at your house. Let's say you sell the house and there's some wiring issues from the home inspection, and you got to get those fixed. The homeowner can do those. The part that gets technical is the plumbing. You have to be a licensed plumber to do plumbing work. Now, do people do their own plumbing? Yeah. And here's where let's say you hire Joe Blow to come do your plumbing. He's not licensed. You fix it, and the buyer says they don't care as long as it's fixed. It's not a big deal. But if something goes haywire, and then you find out that an unlicensed plumber, so we have people sign off on all kinds of things. We have all kinds of forms. We have people buy houses sight unseen. Now imagine that one.
That is nuts. I
Yeah.
mean, like people from different parts of the country, or
Yes.
Okay, so it's not just like some guy that lives in Heron decides he wants to move to Carterville. He's like, I don't really care. Just get me something.
No.
Like you might have someone from New Jersey. It's
Yes.
like, I just got to get out of New Jersey, man. I
Yes.
need 2 bedrooms. Take care of it.
And we have a hold harmless agreement form that says they cannot hold us, that they're buying it sight unseen. And when you go to buy a house, there's so much paperwork, and it's all from one other person suing someone else. Well, that happened. We need another form. And then, I don't even know if you want to get into this, but the whole commission thing that changed August 17th, I don't even know if you know about that.
I don't know anything about this.
Well,
and we can totally get into it. Let's get into it.
This is a big one. When let's just say you're selling your house, and I go to talk to you, and I say I charge 6% to sell your house. The way that usually will work is 3% for me to list it and 3% to the buyer's agent. So you're paying all commission at 6%. It comes out at closing. It comes out of your proceeds. What we usually do is we get the value of the house. We bump it up a little bit to cover that commission, so that you're not losing any money on the sale of your house on the equity. Now, sometimes that's not possible. Sometimes you owe way more than what you're going to get out of it, and you still have to pay for the buyer's commission. So it's kind of complicated, but let's just go back to, we're going to charge you 6% on a $200,000 house. That's $12,000. 6% to me for listing, or $6,000 for me to list it. $6,000 to the buyer's agent.
And that's our sell price.
That's our sell
200,000.
price.
Okay.
Yeah, that's our sell price.
So it might be assessed at 180, but we're going to go 200
200
to cover my expenses.
Yes.
And, okay.
And you may or may not get that, and it may or may not appraise at that, but that's what we're going to do. And we use other house sales to come up with a number. We just don't pull the number out of the sky. We actually look at houses that are the same square footage, same year built, same area. Okay, this house sold for $200,000. I think we can list it for $200,000. Then the National Association of Realtors got sued by a buyer who said it's not fair. I'm sorry, it wasn't the buyer. It was the seller that I had to pay for the buyer's commission. Why am I having to pay for their representation? And the National Association of Realtors and the Department of Justice got involved, and they went, you know what, you're right. So now I go to you and I say, Corey, you can pay the 6%, which is also the buyers, and pay for their representation, but you don't have to now. So you say, well, I don't want to do that. So now you're only going to give 3% when the house sells, and you're going to give it to me for listing it. And you're saying, Mr. Buyer, you're on your own. Well, what if the buyer doesn't have the money and he can't afford to pay for his commission? Are you going to let that buyer walk away? Probably not. So what I say to all my sellers, just keep it the way it is, wrap it into your price, do the 6%. Let's not lose a buyer over commission.
And they don't even really have to know all the nuts and bolts. I mean, if that equates to, in this case, $6,000, you just list the house for $6,000 more,
higher.
and then you don't tell them.
Right. Now, let's go over to the buyer. So a buyer calls you and they want to go look at your house. And I'm not even going to use your house because I know that you're offering buyer's commission. Let's say just some other company's house, and they want to go look at it. We can't put it on the MLS if the seller is offering for the buyer's commission to be paid. We're not allowed to put it on the MLS. We're not allowed anyone to know that. So I have to say to the buyer, yes, I'll be happy to show you that house, but there's a good chance that you're going to have to pay me 3% for me to show you that house. Well, I don't have 3%. What do we do? Well, I call the listing agent. I go, are they going to cover the buyer broker commission? Nope, not doing it. So now I have to decide, am I going to take a chance and show this house to these people and not get paid?
So, wow, okay.
Yeah, it's changed everything. So what I do as the person that I am, I don't worry about it. I go show them the house. If they want that house, I write it up in the offer. They're going to give you $205,000, and $5,000 of that comes back to me from my buyer's commission.
By the
So
way,
there's ways around it.
we're seeing some interesting stuff in Heron right now.
Yes, we are. I'm not sure what this is.
We dodged a deer about 10 minutes ago.
Yes.
For those of you watching on YouTube, Celia kind of pointed. We had a deer run out in front of us, and we're seeing some, I'm going to say young people. They don't look like children, but they're pushing a van. It also looks
Uphill.
Uphill, it looks like they don't have back glass. They have taped some plastic for their back glass on this van.
I hope someone's driving it. Or steering it, I guess I should say.
Looks like somebody was.
Yeah, there's a driver.
I love Heron for a lot of reasons.
That's one of them.
Did you ever see that video we did where I drank all the coffee? And it was just this fun little stage thing we were doing called the Minivan Chronicles. This was a long time ago. This is probably around the time you met me. And we had an episode where I was sampling coffee in every town. And so by the end, I'm losing my mind. I'm jittery and I'm screaming.
All in one day?
No, in a week.
Oh, in a week.
So
okay.
it starts out on Wednesday. I just go to a Starbucks or something. But by the end, I'm hitting up the local coffee shops and grabbing energy drinks from every town I'm in. I'm getting more and more caffeinated. So I had, for real, this was about 75% real, but then we hammed it up for the sake of the video, right? But my last show of the week in the video was in Heron, which was actually real. My last show of the week was in Heron. It was a Saturday night. I think I played the next day, but whatever. I played on a Saturday night in Heron. So I had texted a few people I know. I'm like, hey, listen, we're trying to get this fun video made. And it's supposed to end with me standing on top of my minivan screaming that I'm a golden god. Because I'm just caffeinated to the gills, and it's basically like I'm on cocaine.
Who had the best coffee?
So, yeah, I didn't go home. The best is at Cetera Coffee House in Paducah, but I didn't actually go home that week. But so we recruited some girls from Heron that I know, like Hunter Schulian and Emily Cripps, who's now married to my friend Cody Raines, and some Heron girls. They were gonna stand around the van and be cheering me on as I was up there screaming stuff. And so we're filming this after I played at J&J's timeout. So this is 1 in the morning on a Saturday, and I'm just standing on top of my white minivan screaming to the top of my lungs down here around where Teddy's is. And a cop just rolls by.
I was going to say, I bet a cop went by.
The cop rolls by, looks out the window and sees what we're doing, and then just keeps going. So I was like, what does that guy see on a regular basis? That a dude standing on his minivan screaming is not even moving his needle right now.
1 in the morning outside a bar, you would think that would grab their attention.
Yeah.
But it goes on by, yeah.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. I'll have to send you a link to that, because it ends with, I keep getting crazier and crazier with what I'm saying. So I'm like, I'm the man, or whatever, and they're clapping, and then I'm like, I'm better than Shawn Mendes. And they clap, and I say, I'm a golden god. And they clap, and then I say, I'm better than John Mayer. And then they all just stop, and they're like, get him down from there. He's delusional,
Those are the fun memories.
Yeah, it was good times. Okay, so let's go back to homes here. I'm going to buy my forever home.
Yep.
And
which won't be, but that's okay.
In this imaginary scenario,
let me explain why I say that.
Yeah,
I have so many people that when I go to list their house, I thought, we thought we were going to die in this house. We had no idea we'd end up selling it. So, life brings changes. So when you say your forever home, and I said probably not, but
I gotcha. Yeah. So in my dream universe, you're licensed in Western Kentucky, because I just don't want to leave. No offense to Illinois, but I like where I'm at. I will tell you, now this is very real, I'm being serious. The basement is almost a non-negotiable because I live in a tornado alley. I've had cousins killed by tornadoes. That's a big deal about every 3 or 4 years. Mayfield got leveled by a tornado.
I remember that.
So, yeah, that would be a non-negotiable. I have to have a safe spot to go, and that's just a thing for me.
Okay, to go out in the yard and lift up a door and go in the ground?
Maybe. My stepdad he sold those for years.
Yeah, those
shelters.
things are great. They work.
What my mom and stepdad have in Vienna. They go out and get in their little thing every time.
Not as convenient, but much cheaper.
Yeah, see, I really want the basement because I want cool stuff in my basement. I just have this dream scenario. But what's our checklist? Is that one of the first things? Like, Corey, do you want a basement? I mean, budget's going to be first.
Yeah, pre-approvals first.
Okay.
Budget, once you're pre-approved, would be next. And then I need to know what area. Like, if I was working with you here, I'd say you want Heron, Carterville, Marion, school district. Does that matter? Yeah, school districts are sometimes very important. Then I need to know, do you want 3 bedrooms, 2 baths? Basement's kind of lower on the list because not every house has a basement. So if you're wanting a basement, that kind of limits us a little bit. It's kind of like a swimming pool. If you have a pool in the yard, it's either going to really, really help you or really, really hurt you.
Yeah, we can do a redneck version of the pool. Like, we can put a tarp out on the lawn with some Dawn soap and do a slip and slide.
Yeah. You know a little bit about that, don't you?
Literally had a neighbor who would do that. He'd put cinder blocks down. I grew up in Metropolis, Celia.
Yeah, but we did it at my party, too.
Yeah, you do. You do. That's right.
The foam and all.
But we can make concessions with the pool if I can have the basement. So does that cut my options down to like 20%? I mean, how many houses have a
See, that's the other thing. You may have 20 houses listed that have no basements, and then the next week you may list 10 that have a basement, because not every house has a basement. It just depends on what's selling and whose house you're selling. But if you want a basement, the other factor with that, if it's an older home, the chances of it being dry. If it's a house that's built in 1900 to like 1950, they're wet. And then you get into mold. And then you get into the kind of loan that you've got, because an FHA loan is not going to loan on a wet basement. So then you have to change your loan to conventional, where they'll let anything go, pretty much. And then we haven't even talked about appraisal. Then it's got to appraise out.
So even if it has nothing to do with the buying process, do you kind of pull me aside and say, hey, man, if you've never owned a basement before, are you aware you got to have like a sub pump? Like, do you kind of give me those like just friendly advice? Like, Corey, I know you're kind of set on this, but maybe just get the shelter because your electricity cost is going to go up $100 a month to maintain a basement. Or
it depends on. Usually, when we go and we look at the house the first time, for instance, there's something called a Pacific electrical box. If I see a Pacific electrical box, I'm going to say, you're going to have to totally change out that box. It's going to cost money. If the seller won't do it, you're going to have to, because it won't pass inspection. They're just an old, dangerous, can cause a fire type electrical box. It's been there for 75, 80 years with no problem, but they won't loan on them if it's a government backed loan.
I got you.
Yeah, there's all kinds of weird things, and we've already talked about this a little bit. When the government gets involved, then it screws things up a little bit. For instance, a VA loan, holy Toledo. A VA loan is awful. Just because the appraiser comes out and picks everything to pieces. And it all has to be fixed before you close. And so let's say you do that and you fix everything for your seller and they go, I changed my mind. I don't want the house. That happens more than you think it does. And here's the problem with it. And I don't want to put this out there to people so they sit there and know that you can do this. But really, what do you do when a buyer backs out the day of closing and just says, I'm not doing it? Yeah, you can sue them. But you know what that does? That ties your house up for years. You've got attorney fees, and you can't get, what do they call it? Lemonade or blood out of a turnip. That's the old term. If for whatever reason they just can't afford it anymore, or they just don't want it anymore, you take them to court, that doesn't mean they can still get the financing and buy it. So what do? You put it back on the market. And it's an awful phone call as a realtor to make to your seller. I've had people quit their jobs. They've got their moving van, they're getting ready to leave town, and the buyer changes their mind. Can you imagine calling someone and telling them that? Yeah, it's awful. And they get mad and they start threatening, I'm going to sue him and I'm going to this, and I just let them talk. And I'm like, yep, I don't blame you. You have every right. You will win. There's nothing in this contract that they can get out of it. And then I'll give them a day or two, and then I call them up and they're calmed down and we put it back on the market. It's really a sad situation.
I've never even thought about that scenario.
It's bad.
What you've done is added you giving me one more thing to be disappointed with the universe.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I know.
There's North Korea, and then there's this. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really, really, it's a sad, and and that's why when people come up to me and they go, oh, I think it would be so fun to be a realtor, go in all those pretty houses. Well, like I said earlier, that's about that much of it. It is getting from showing you the house to the closing table that is very stressful, a lot of work.
Well, and being a musician's the same. I think people think that I work 3 hours a day. And I'm like, bro. Like, I mean, if I'm on the road from the moment I wake up until I get back to the hotel, I'm doing something work-related.
Yeah.
Like 7 in the morning until 1 in the morning or 3 in the morning. I mean, like, if I've left Paducah, everything I'm doing has to do with the show that night. And then I got to get to the next town. But, like, the 3 hours is, like, the coolest part of my job, but that's all anyone sees.
Right.
And so...
Well, I think it'd be fun to be a musician until I watch you set up and take down.
See, and you're one of the few people that really understands that, because it's just you and Myron every year when I show up at your house, and you know how much it takes for me to get all that set up. And, some people have, like, stigmas about realtors.
Yeah.
Like...
They do. We're kind of in the same category as accountants, CPAs, lawyers.
Yeah, that would be one. When I was a kid, that was just like a thing where everyone's like, well, lawyers are liars. Like, nobody trusted the lawyers. I mean, there's obviously good lawyers. So, do you ever get people that are just kind of like a jerk at the beginning of the process just because they have it in their head that you're just out to get them?
Yes, there's a lot of people that do not like realtors. That'd take you back to Carterville.
Yeah, we just want to, I guess, go that way and just keep driving here. But I love this area, by the way. I've driven by this little convenience store.
I sold that convenience store.
No way!
Yeah, I did. I had that listed and sold it. Yes, there are people that absolutely have had a terrible experience with this is what I've learned from being a real estate agent. I wouldn't have thought anything about just picking a realtor and having them show me a house. It's a huge, huge decision, but you don't know it. When you're picking it, you could be picking the best in the world or in the area, or you could be picking the worst, and you don't know. You just call the name on the sign, right? And it's made me realize it's the same thing with doctors and lawyers. Every profession, there's some good ones and there's some bad ones. And now I'm kind of like, I really do my research with things before I just pick up the phone and call someone about something. Because I know I had a lady come in the other day and so upset, just so upset with her realtor. And when she told me the name, I mean, I laughed because I almost knew that was who it was going to be just based on what she was telling me. And I laughed, and I'm like, I don't know how these people stay in business, because they just aren't any good. When I say they're not any good, what I mean by that, it's about them making the money and selling them any house. I will not sell. I've walked into houses before, if I was showing you houses, and I'd say, that house right there, Corey, we're not even looking at it. I know all about it. It's not the house for you. No, it's not what you're looking for. I just, because you know why? If I see you in 4 or 5 years and and I haven't seen you since we sold the house, I want you to look at me and say, I love my house. I just love my house. I don't want them to go, you sold me a lemon.
Right.
That thing's a piece of crap. And I knew it was a piece of crap, and I did it anyway.
Well, when you think about it, honestly, that's probably, outside of people getting married, I mean, that's like a top 3, top 5 life decision.
Is.
I mean, where you're living is affecting everything about your life, even more so than buying a car.
Yes.
So, I mean, you're basically shepherding people through one of the biggest decisions they're ever going to make. So if you have a conscience at all, you have to take all that seriously.
Yeah, you do.
Wow.
Yep.
What are you most looking forward to in the future with your company? Like, what's your favorite part of being a realtor, and then what are you looking forward to the most?
Well, when I started the business back in 2008, I did it just I needed it. I needed some money. I needed to get a job, because I was divorced, and I thought, okay, I'll do this. I didn't expect it to be the number one realtor. We're gonna have our second best year this year, even with the interest rates up. But it's only because we're taking a lot of the market share. I didn't start House to Home for it to be that, but it's turned into that. And it's a double-edged sword because now I'm so big, it takes a lot of my time. And I'm getting older. And I kind of want to dial back. But nobody runs it the way I'm going to run it. No one's going to do... I see things that get done and I'm like, no, let's not do it like that. We need to... So I need to be hands-on. I need to be involved every day. But I also, if I want to take off for 2 weeks, I really can because I've got people in place that are running it, you know, that take care of things. I don't have to worry about it as much. So it's been a joy. It's been rewarding. That was my mission, was after I started really growing, I'm like, you know what? I didn't intend on this, but I'm going to become the #1 real estate company in Southern Illinois. And that was my goal, and I hit it. Once you hit that, then what? You know, set another goal. What would it be? To double my sales? I don't think I want to do that. That's going to take a lot of time. If I was younger, I would start a title company, an inspection place, a tax place. I mean, I'd have like a kiosk set up in somewhere local, one-stop shop. And I would think that would be so cool. You know, we're going to take care of every single need. Insurance agent, you don't need to go anywhere. We're going right here. We got all that. But that would take a lot of time and effort.
That would be amazing, though. And a guy like me, oh man, that would appeal to me. If you're like, Corey, listen, you can just check in here. I hand you the stuff, you sign it.
Yeah.
You're good.
And to have a reputation where you don't have to worry about house to home or whatever we call this, they're going to do you right. So no one's afraid to walk in the door and just say, yeah, this insurance guy's going to do you right. You know, that's what I would really like to, if I had a goal, that's what I would do. But I'm not going to start that now. I'm too old. It'd take years.
Yeah. Well,
I'm not sure I answered your question, but that was...
No, I think, and I've said this to a few different people now, but I think, I mean, I obviously knew you before this conversation, so I already know what kind of person you are. That's why I wanted to have you on. But it's just kind of cool you describing how being a real estate agent is like every other business. It's the people business. So I've said this now in a few episodes, but literally every business you get into is the people business. And I think where professionals go wrong, or anyone in any job really goes wrong, is they lose sight of that. So your scenario where a person is just going to sell someone a lemon, like, well, I know this home is, you know, they're going to have a lot of problems here in about 3 years. I'm just going to do it anyways because I want the commission.
Right.
But when you do that, you lose sight of what's ultimately important. But that is going to come back on you professionally. Will. That's what I don't understand, why people think. I mean, I do know there are certain companies that are so big they can just screw people over and it's not going to matter. If Walmart decides to do something, okay, they're huge. If Jeff Bezos wants to cut corners, okay. But everyday people, normal people, if we don't take care of the people we're serving, it's going to catch up with you professionally. You can't just get away with that. So I really love hearing you talk about this because you take people's personal lives seriously, and you take your responsibility very seriously of getting them into a nice home, because that's everything. I mean, if you live in a bad neighborhood, you're always on pins and needles, or if your home's always needing work, you're always having to think about it. So
it doesn't mean that even if I tell them I would shy away from this house, some people still buy it.
Right.
You know, they're going to, but at least they know that I told them. You know, and I you can't really dog the house too much. You gotta be diplomatic. You can't say, well, it's just a piece of you know what, and I know who owns it and who built it. You can't act like that. You just have to say, might not be your best choice. I think we can find better.
Next week we're actually having my former boss on, and he would kind of tell us that when we were showing guitars, because I worked at a guitar store, and he was like, we want to treat people the way we want to be treated, and there is a line here, so don't ever lie, and always make them aware of something. If you can save them some money, say, hey man, I can save you $300 if you just do X.
Right.
But he's like, every now and then you get a guy who's already done his own research, and he comes in and he knows exactly what guitar he wants, and it might be a $12,000 guitar, and he's dead set on it. And he's either going to get it from you, or he's going to order it online. Just sell him that guitar that he already wants. He's got the money. He's coming in specifically for that. Don't try to fight him. Don't kill a sell. You know, just sell him the guitar. But yeah,
those are realtors' dreams. Whenever you show a house, let's say an expensive house, $600,000 house, cash, no inspection, close in 2 weeks. That's called hitting the slot machine. But those do not come around very often.
Well,
but they do.
When you sell me my home, it will not be that way at all. I will come to you and be like, I got to get out of this apartment. I want a basement. Figure this out for me. Tell me what I owe you.
And that's okay too. I like that too.
Yeah. I really appreciate you, Celia. I have mentioned Myron a little bit. You guys are so supportive of me. And me telling you that day, well, you have what I want. It's not just that you have a gorgeous home. When I watch how you guys interact with your friend group and how plugged in you are to the community, that's something I want too. And it's obvious that you guys love each other and you love your friends, and you know what you do every year for your friends is pretty cool. And Myron was a state trooper, and so you guys, a lot of times, if you have a friend that's retiring or something that year, you'll make a big deal out of their career at your yearly party.
Right.
So
would you have ever guessed Myron? That's what Myron did before you knew him?
Probably not. For those that don't know Myron, he could be Kid Rock's body double. Kid Rock may be his favorite person on the planet, and Myron likes to party a little bit.
A little bit. We went to Nashville last Saturday night, or not last Saturday, a week ago, and of course we go to the Kid Rock bar.
Of course, right.
And he's dressed as Kid Rock, and we try to go late in the evening because it's Halloween, so he can do this. You would not believe the people who have been drinking for 4 and 5 hours think it's Kid Rock. And they walk up to him and we're dressed as piñatas. Now come on, me and 2 other girls were dressed as piñatas. And they come up and they'll go, "Are you really him?" And I want to go, "You really think 3 piñatas would be following Kid Rock around in his bar that look like us?" No, that would not be happening. But we have so much fun with it because it's just, he looks so much like him. It's crazy.
He does. One night, I was playing a show in Marion, and somebody was just trying to get him going. So he was like, "Kid Rock," because he'll always request Kid Rock, and someone's like, "Kid Rock sucks, Myron." And so
it's probably one of my sons.
I think it was actually. And just to stir the pot, I got so serious, and I was like, you know what? Kid Rock's the only thing holding this country together right now. And I played it off like I was serious, and whoever it was, they're like, "You're really effed up if you actually believe that." But that's a hot button. You can get Myron going, if you step to Kid Rock.
Yeah, it is amazing when you get to know him that he is a state policeman. But I mean, he was a drug cop for years, and that's what he did. He had that look about him. He had the long hair. He wore the earring, the chains. Go buy drugs in a bar. So that's what he did. And then he ended up going to general criminal, which he did not like at all. Rapes, murders.
Oh.
Yeah. Could you see him doing that? No, he hated that.
Do you have any stories about that? I mean, being so close to so many police officers.
I tell you what, and I'm not slamming the police officers of today at all. I'm not, because I think it's hard to get good quality police officers now because they're not supported. This defund the police stuff. I mean, who wants to go out and put their life on the line? And Myron worries about this now because he still will carry. And he says, "I worry that if we're in a situation that I actually have to use my gun, am I going to be supported, even if I'm right?" So the group of policemen that we hang around that are retired now and friends are just wonderful, wonderful people that you would want to, if you've got a situation that you would want them there to help you, to take care of you. They're just wonderful people. And I feel so fortunate because, Myron and I, we obviously didn't start our lives out together. We came in, midlife together. I'm just so fortunate that I got to know them, that I got to know these men and women. And they're just good people. But they do like to sit around and talk about their stories. They'll tell you they've got all kinds of stories, and they're all of them are pretty interesting. But yeah, I like the veterans. I like police. I like first responders, firemen, the people that put their lives on the line for us and take care of us. And we need to be more thankful for that.
100%. Well, you guys, you're great people. I appreciate your support. You guys like to party, play hard.
Yes,
but
we do.
You're very generous. You're very hardworking people. And you're always looking to help someone else out. So,
well, I can touch on that real quick if you want me to.
100%. Let's do it.
The other thing that House to Home did about 6 years ago, we started the House to Home We Care, We Share Foundation. And what that is every commission check. It might not be much money, but each broker will donate like $10 to CASA or Vets for Vets or whatever charity they pick, and then House to Home matches that. And then we do fundraising, like we just did Glow Golf in September. We're getting ready to do music trivia. So all of the fundraising that we do goes into our not-for-profit. And I think, we've donated $234,000 in these 6 years back to the community. And well, from the foundation, like you might call me up and say, hey, I know someone's house that just burnt down and they've lost everything. Could you give them $1,000 or something? And we've got a board of directors, and I'll present it to them. And most of the time, we go ahead and we give it to them. And we write them a check for $1,000. It's the people that fall through the cracks that don't have any way to get any extra funding from the big organizations. So we do the House to Home We Care, we share that we give to people, and then we also donate each commission check we donate back to the community. So, and then I totally forgot to talk about my dad's foundation, the Angela Joseph Camerado Foundation, because when my dad came back, he started the vending company, and my sons now have it, Michael and Adam, and the leftover food that they have that hasn't expired and still got shelf life that they have to bring back from these stops, we give it to the local veterans associations to give to the vets. So we got a lot of charity work that goes on behind the scenes as well with things like that.
So if I was looking to start contributing to some veterans organization, I mean, could I call you with like specific things like, hey Celia, I'm looking to help some guys that, like with say suicide prevention, which is a huge issue now with young veterans coming back.
Right.
Would you know someone that you can put me in touch with?
Yeah.
And I could just maybe donate something to try to help?
Yes, I know quite a few people. There's the Haven House that actually takes homeless vets in. They're in Marion. Tom Harness, he's a big vet person. He served. I know several people that if you wanted to do something that we could do.
Would you be okay with people contacting you through your realtor's email address or whatever if they had those types of questions? Or could
Sure.
they get a hold of you? They call your office?
It's best to call my cell phone, and you can get it. You can just Google me online or go to the House to Home website. We put out a monthly magazine. They're all over town. You can get my number. It's on a bathroom wall.
Yeah, and we'll obviously have Celia's name spelled correctly on the title of the episode. So just Google her.
Yeah.
House to Home Realty.
Realty.
There's certain words I have trouble with, Celia.
A lot of people think
realty.
They think
Realty.
reality. They'll put an I in there.
Yeah.
And no I.
It's just real T-Y.
Realty.
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 Yeah.
But if you Google House to Home, the number 2, not the word 2, House to Home, you'll find us. You'll find me.
There you go. So if you just want to help with local charities or
List your house with us, because part of that commission goes to
there you go.
somebody.
And then obviously, if you live in Southern Illinois and you're interested in buying or selling,
Yeah.
then they contact you directly.
Yeah, and then you can come to my party in August when Corey comes and plays.
There you go. Yeah, and we have a giant slip and slide.
Yes,
every
we do,
year
and a
with
foam
bubbles.
machine.
They do it right though. They have big foam and bubbles. The kid I grew up with was using Dawn dish liquid.
No, we have the foam machine, and you got to be. I'll tell the story real quick. 'Cause it's kind of funny, but then again, it's not. Whenever I called the company about if it was going to hurt my pool, and he goes, "Oh, I wouldn't. Oh no, I wouldn't do that." And I said, "You think it's going to hurt my filter?" He goes, "Oh no." He says, "If somebody's in distress, you're never going to see them underneath those bubbles in your pool." And I went, "Well, we're not worried about that."
Yeah,
I said,
that was what he thought you meant.
Yeah,
yeah.
I said, "No, is it going to hurt my filter?" And he goes, "Well, the foam, the way it lays, and it does do this, it's going to lay on the concrete and go right across to the pool, and you're not going to know where your pool starts or where it ends." I'm like, "We're not worried about that. I just need to know if it's going to hurt my filter." And he never would answer me. So we were sitting there that Friday night, the first year that we ever did it, which wasn't last year, but the year before, and we're sitting there getting everything ready, and Myron goes, "We are not putting foam in our pool because we don't know what it's going to do to the filter." And I'm like, "Hey, I'm fine with that. No problem." Well, you witnessed what happened. After about a couple hours into doing the slip and slide, he yanked that thing around, and there it went, and it was so much fun.
Yeah, like we said, Myron enjoys a good time.
Yes, he does.
And normally I start playing, like 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock every year, and I play till about 8.
Yeah, yep,
And
you
then
do.
last year, I had volunteered to play an hour at the beginning and the end. I'm like, yeah, you don't owe me for these 2 extra hours. I'm just trying to
You were training.
get stretched out.
Yeah.
Because I was going to play a 12-hour show, and your party's always in August. So I knew if I could handle 8 hours in the August heat, I could handle 12 hours in the air conditioning.
Right.
But yeah, normally Myron, if I start at 2, by about 5, he's really feeling it.
He's feeling no pain. And to let you know, it did not hurt the filter.
Yeah, well, you did it again this year, so.
You know, it was a little worse this year. It was a little harder to get the bubbles out of the pool. I don't know what the deal was, but yeah. But it did not hurt the filter, and it was a good time.
Well, you'll have to remind me. Every year you always post pictures and stuff, but I'll have to put some on my music page too this year when we have the party. Don't let me forget to do that. So
we are lined up, aren't we?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. Yeah, but I got you already penciled in.
Okay.
So I kind of know when you like to have it, and I always just stick your name down on that
Well,
Saturday.
the reason I like to do it in August, because you may have a pop-up thunderstorm that might come and go. If we did it, when we did it in June, was the first year we did it, I mean, you could have an all-day rain in
Right.
June. It's a little drier in August.
Yeah, June's like the new May. I walked out this morning and I was like, okay. Kind of felt like April 25th or something. I'm like, I mean, I can deal with this today. That's fine. But see, that's what makes me nervous, though, because that's when you get the tornadoes.
I know. You really don't like tornadoes, do you?
I don't. I'm telling you, I didn't. I was never afraid of them. I'm not afraid of them now. But I was on the Brookport Bridge when I was 7 during a tornado, and the bridge was moving.
Oh, gosh. Yeah.
And that traumatized my brother. He never got over it. He was 12. It didn't bother me. And so I was that guy that would have been in my yard. Oh, look, that would have been me until 2013, and then 2 of my cousins died in Brookport, Unionville area.
From a tornado?
Because of a tornado. They lived about 3 or 4 miles apart from each other, and one lived in a trailer park, and she died. But then my other cousin, and out of respect for his son, I won't say his name, but he lived in Unionville, and he was out in his garage area doing some work, and he looked and saw the tornadoes coming through Brookport. So he's like, oh, that's headed for here. So he ran in, told his girlfriend, hey, the tornadoes are coming, let's get in the closet. And he covered her up to protect her. And the tornado hit his house and threw, I think, like his refrigerator or his washing machine or something across the room, and it came through and killed him instantly.
Oh, my gosh.
But what's really sad is, had he stayed in his garage, it didn't even touch his garage. And so since that day, it was like any other time I've experienced that, the other 7 or 8 times throughout the course of my life where it's come on the news, everybody get home, whatever. That was like every other time. I drove to my brother's because I was close to his house. I wasn't close to mine. We watched the news together, didn't think anything of it, and then I started getting text messages that night that my cousins had died. And I had a third one. Yeah, so and then with everything that happened to Mayfield, I mean, downtown Mayfield just is no more.
Well, I can absolutely see why you're traumatized from it. That's a lot. That's
yes.
A lot of tornado stuff.
I just don't want to play with it. And for me, if I'm going to buy a house, I mean, I'm not even dating anyone right now, but the idea, the long-term goal would be to be a father and a husband. So I'm really thinking about, like, as a man, because I know where I live, I know that's a possibility, I need to have a plan for that.
Yeah.
So my children don't have to experience something like that. That's really what it is,
That's weird that you should say that, because I have a tornado fetish. When my dad was in the Army, we lived in Oklahoma, Tornado Alley there too. And my mother used to make me get underneath the bed because there was always tornadoes out there. Always, storms, bad storms going through there. We lived in Fort Sill, a lot in Oklahoma. And it scarred me so bad. And then that 1982 tornado that went through Marion that destroyed it, there was a girl that I knew that was killed in that tornado. I have been petrified of, and I used to, not so much anymore now that my children are grown, but I used to have a reoccurring dream that there was a tornado and I could see it, and I was trying to get home to my kids.
Oh.
So yeah, I've got tornado issues as well. So, and then that's where I lose all tolerance for these people that live where there's a hurricane coming and they don't evacuate, then they're on the roof crying for help. I'm like, it's coming. Get out. With a tornado, we may be under a watch, but we may have 15 minutes warning before a tornado hits. We can't there's nothing we can do about that. But these people that know a hurricane's coming, and then they get themselves in these positions and want the first responders to go bail them out. It's irritating.
Did you see the guy who said he was just going to chill in his
Yeah.
boat? I guess he lived.
Well, I saw him, and then there was another one that had just moved, which it was this last one, Helene, just moved there, and he goes, well, I'm kind of new to the area, but I think I can handle it. I'm like, you don't know
You
nothing.
can handle it.
Yeah.
Yeah, what are you, Jesus?
Yeah, what are you going to handle? You going to stop the wind?
Yeah. Well,
Don't mess with Mother Nature.
oh, I know, believe me. Like I said, I mean, I respect it now.
I do too.
But yeah, I'm looking forward to the party. It's going to be great as always. And
Oh my gosh, it comes so fast.
oh, I know.
When we book it, I'm like, oh, that's so far in the future. And the next thing you know, it's here. And then summer's always over, then I'm always sad.
Yeah, I love summer because it's easier on my voice.
Oh, is
And
it?
so this time of year, when we start having these weather swings, like, when people just typically, they're like, oh man, my allergies got me. I got the sniffles. Well, that screws my voice up.
Yeah.
So that whole thing where people are like, the weather changed, it kind of got me. Well, that may be like 10 straight days of I can't talk in between shows, because if I do, it's going to be too much. Because when I start having those types of issues, I still have to sing 3 hours a night.
I never
however
thought
many-
about that.
Yeah, so I hate it.
It's kind of like when Pink sang the national anthem at the Super Bowl. She was sick, and I don't know if you remember that or
No,
not.
I don't, actually.
Because I'm a Pink fan, kind of, sort of now.
I never knew that about you.
Yeah, of course,
Yeah.
of course you would know that. But yeah, she sang this, and she was sick, and that's the kind of the first thing that ever made me think about musicians' situation is you don't know when you're going to get sick. That's an opportunity of a lifetime. She's singing at the Super Bowl, and I'll be damned if she didn't get sick. But she
Yeah.
made it. She made it through it. So I have sympathy for you, because you're right. I have allergies, and I don't think a thing about it. It messes you up.
Yeah, so this time of year, it's not that I don't like it. I actually like fall. It's a cool season. But fall and spring, every year I know better. Around St. Patrick's Day, we don't book a lot of stuff. We don't do more than 3 shows in a row, because I already know if I start to feel that way, my voice could be out. If after about 3 shows, it could be too many. And then, I mean, I've gotten in situations before where I could barely talk, and it's only happened probably 7 or 8 times in 10 years. And
Were you total laryngitis? Because I get
basically,
it.
yeah, and probably about 4 or 5 of those, I hired my sister to come sing, and it was fine. Everybody loved her, and it was cool.
Your sister sings?
She does. I have 2 sisters. They both sing. They're both really good too.
Well, why don't you guys do like some kind of family?
Well, my one sister lives in Nashville.
The Osmond brothers is what I'm trying to think, or Partridge Family. That's what I'm
Yeah,
thinking.
yeah. And then my younger sister Gina, she's significantly younger than me, but she is doing her own thing now in Paducah.
So what do they sing? I find this so interesting.
Yeah.
That I didn't even think about it. Maybe you had sibling. Did your mom or dad sing?
No, not at all. So I will say my 2 sisters are non-biological. So keep
okay.
that in mind. That's not blood, because like the Evetses, I have a few cousins that can kind of, like my cousin Jimmy's an entertainer, but like my parents both sucked at it. Like, I'm just going to be straight with you. My mom
Well,
is...
where did you come? How did you get the gene?
I don't know. But what's cool is like my sisters, even though we don't share DNA like that, they're both all into music. So we've always had that bond. I've
That's
had that
cool.
with both of them. But yeah, Stacy lives in Nashville, and her husband is a recording engineer. He's actually won like 4 Grammys. He's engineered some albums for Keb Mo, who's like a blues artist, and Kingfish, the guitar player that plays blues. And then Gina is just now kind of on the come up. She's sang for years, but she's trying to get her own thing going in the Paducah area.
But what do they sing? I mean, what kind of
Like
music?
what style? I would say Gina's probably trying to go more of my route, like doing more of the hits, like a variety. I don't know if she's going to be doing rapping or like a lot of country or anything, but she does kind of just popular, like Any Man of Mine by Shania Twain, and then she'll sing Chapel Roan.
Okay.
She's kind of doing that.
So do you have a song that you really, really like and a song that you really, really hate?
Oh, me?
Yeah. Is there a song that you sing that everyone loves but you just hate singing
Okay,
it?
so I don't really... There's some stuff I hate, but I don't really play anything I hate. But what it is for me is like I don't understand the hype of it sometimes. So like think of it like if we were to go through that Taco Bell and you and I both just got like a quesadilla, And then I just wouldn't shut up about the quesadilla. I'm like, this is the best. This is amazing. Like, we got to keep doing this. Are you going to have these at your party this year? And you'd be like, Corey, I know Mexican people that make real quesadillas. I mean, this is okay, I guess. But, like, would you just shut up about that? Well, there's a musical equivalent of that. Like, something will take off. Like, it was Old Town Road a few years ago.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, wait, this is like this is a song, okay. I mean, it's okay. It's kind of catchy, but this isn't like Stairway to Heaven or something.
Right.
Like, I don't get this isn't Bach. This isn't Beethoven. But people will there's always like a song every summer. It was Fancy Like one year.
Fancy Like, yeah.
The first few years, it was Wagon Wheel. It
Yes.
was Body Like a Back Road the first year I quit my job. And then now it's like Zach Bryan. And I mean, I enjoy some of his music, but it will like blow up, and then people will treat it like it's literally the words of Jesus Christ.
That's
and it'll
hilarious.
be so popular. So it's not that I don't like it. It's like I don't get.
You don't understand what the hype is.
Yeah, like why is Old Town Road better than say like a Jimmy Eat World song?
Yeah.
Like that's what I don't get is like people be like, right now it's Tipsy, a bar song by Shabuzi. That's the one right now.
I do kind of like this song.
I like the song. In fact, most of these songs I have either I'm like indifferent to them or I kind of like them. Like Fancy Like, it's just not something I would personally write, but I don't hate it. It's clever. Like, it's fun to sing. But that's the thing is, like, I don't get the crowd reaction sometimes, but I do it because I know they enjoy it. But it's not moving my needle. Like, when I hear Shabuzi, I think, oh, this is a really well-produced song. Like, whoever recorded this knows what they're doing, because I feel like I'm in the bar, so they put all this together really well. And even if there's songs I don't like I'm not a huge Luke Bryan fan, right? But I can listen to his music and appreciate it because it's put together so well. It's recorded so well, like all the guitar parts. So it's really hard for me to just hate something.
Oh, I got
because
you.
I appreciate musicianship. I'm listening to the recording, engineering. I'm listening to the mix.
So do you hear a song that's popular and then you add it because you think it'd be a hit, or you're being asked for it?
Yeah. Like Fancy Like, when that dropped, I was at some show and somebody's like, you know Fancy Like? I'm like, Fancy? Reba McEntire? They're like, no, Fancy Like. I'm like, no, sorry. And then like a week later, same thing, but then it was like a 70-year-old woman yelling at me. So I'm like, bro, if we got the old people wanting this,
It's time to learn it.
And little kids are asking for it too. So
Well, they did those TikTok videos where they were dancing to it or
that's
whatever.
the thing now. If there's a hand gesture or it was on Stranger Things or what, that's how it's going to take off now. But I remember my buddy Sam, he was with me because it was Labor Day weekend, and they just kept screaming at me to play Fancy Like, and we didn't even know what they were talking about yet. Apparently it had just dropped. So like the next morning, we're driving up to like Champaign, and I'm listening to it in the headphones, and he goes, are you really going to learn that song? I go, Sam, this would be like if I worked at Burger King and I refused to wear the visor.
Yeah.
I don't have a choice, bro.
Yeah.
I'm learning the song. So I just like entertaining people. And
Does
so
it-
when I see they're happy, it makes me happy.
So does
basically.
it take you a long... So you want to learn Fancy Like, do you have to get the sheet music, or do you hear it play by sound?
No, that's an easy one. I just listen to it and then try it out a few times. It's almost like being a stand-up comedian. You try it out in front of an audience. So the first night, like if I've literally just listened to it 7 times that day on the road,
And you can
and
play
I've
it?
never actually played it, well, it's going to be a little rough around the edges.
Right.
But yeah, I can play it.
When did you realize that you had a gift for this? Did you take lessons?
So I've always loved music. My mom will tell you when I was 2, that's when she knew something was up, because she bought me a plastic drum, and apparently I would just sit and beat the thing like I was obsessed with it. I do remember getting a guitar when I was 3, like a Fisher-Price guitar.
Uh-huh.
But the moment that, there's 2 of them. One, I was not quite 4. My brother's birthday was always 6 weeks before mine, and he's 5 years older than me, right?
Okay.
So he turned 9, which means I was 3, about to turn 4 in 6 weeks. And my parents got him this like 80s like Yamaha keyboard thing, very cheap, but it had all the little sounds, all the little buttons you could push. And he was angry because he wanted like a new baseball glove or something. So like he opens up the keyboard, my dad's pumped, like, oh, we got him a keyboard, and then like he makes a face, and it really pissed my dad off because like I guess they spent decent money for it, but I loved the thing. So I remember that night, like, calling my grandpa and be like, Grandpa, you'll never believe this. Like, it's got all these sounds. I can push all these buttons. And then I was in love with that thing. So I would sit and write my own songs with it. But I always played baseball and basketball. And I always thought, well, I'll just grow up and play first base for the Atlanta Braves. You know, like, that was my thing. But then when I was 13, I saw old footage of Stevie Ray Vaughan on, like, they were doing some documentary on him. And that was it. That was like, I'm never going to do anything else. I'm going to play guitar. I didn't even play guitar at that point. I played piano and drums. But I was like, I'm going to learn to play guitar. And then I've just never wanted to do anything else.
So were your parents okay with that? And the reason I ask that, I always think about Kid Rock. I wonder if his dad and mom ever said, just go get a job, you know?
So, okay, my mom's mega supportive. My dad was very supportive, but he was very hard-nosed. He was very old school. And he did tell me, he's like, you're not going to learn to play guitar. And I always tell this story. It's kind of heartwarming because he told me that, but then when it came time for me to actually go buy one, I didn't have the money. And my dad paid for the rest of it. Like, I had my lawn mowing money, and it wasn't enough. And I was like, Dad, I can pay you back, you know, after I mow for the next however many weeks. And he goes, like, wave me off, like, don't worry. And like, my dad was just like, he was very, I hate to say hard on us, but like, no nonsense. And so he died when I was 16, but he would tell like some of his cousins, like, man, I think Corey thinks he's just going to be able to play guitar and stuff. So it's funny to me now because I am doing that.
So, but he doesn't know that.
No, he doesn't. He saw me playing piano in church, and then I was in like a Christian rock band when I was a teenager. So my dad was like real, like, no nonsense. He was hard on us, you know, big into like discipline, or like he would watch us mow the lawn. If we missed a spot, he'd come out and be like, hey, you missed a spot. But I know that he was very proud because of certain incidents, like the one with him buying that guitar.
Yeah.
And then another one about 2 weeks before he died, one of his nurses had heard my group play. I was 16. And we were called JCPC, tremendous name. And but she had saw my dad's last name, and she was like, Mr. Evans, do you know a kid that's playing in a Christian rock band right now called JCPC? And he's like, that's my son. And he came home and he was like so proud to tell me that.
Oh,
so he was like,
cool.
I heard JCPC's the hottest band around right now. So like, yeah, he could be tough, but sometimes I wonder if part of that was just like my sister said, he realized he wasn't going to be around, and he knew he was raising two men, like me and my brother, and he probably just didn't want to baby us.
Well, the parenting that they use right now, the soft parent, isn't that what it's called, soft parenting? Where you talk, that you don't discipline, you know, you don't get on to the kid. I had 4 boys under the age of 4, and I could take them anywhere. And if they started to act up, I would just point my finger at them, and they knew because they had consequences they were going to have to pay. Kids today don't have any consequences. They get by. Oh, I just really struggle with this, with parenting today.
Yeah.
Oh, I bet the principal never should have ever called about me because I'd have been just as much trouble. Same with my kids.
Right.
But now the parent gets up there and, how could you do this to my kid? And I don't like it. But
well, my dad would give him that speech every year, like the teacher. He'd be like, listen, I know they took, he would call it whipping.
yeah,
The spanking is what they call it. We call it getting whipped. But he would be like, I know they took whipping out of school, but if Corey needs one, you can give him one.
Yeah.
And then he would be like, he's going to get another one when he gets home.
And that's the way I think a lot of kids were raised.
Yeah,
Now,
I
I'm not
appreciate
saying
it.
that we didn't do things that we shouldn't do, that we were perfect little angels growing up, because there's a lot of stuff I did I shouldn't have done. But if I got caught, I'd been in big trouble.
I appreciate all of it now, honestly. I think my dad, the only thing with all of that is I wish he would have told me more, like he was proud of me or like he thought I was doing a good job, because it was basically like he was always telling me what he didn't like.
Yes.
But the older I get, I'm like, you know, my dad was pretty much right about everything that he was trying to teach me.
Yeah.
And I feel like he did a good job of it. You know, the only big thing I'd probably change is I would also give praise to the same level as criticism, which when I was teaching kids, if they did something right, then I would point that out too. Like, hey, bud, you really did a good job with that thing. Keep doing that. Or
well, that's life in
whatever.
general. If I have a broker that's really, I'm struggling with, and she's doing things or he's doing things that they shouldn't, I start every conversation with them. Hey, let me tell you, it was really good that you said and you handled this the way you did. It was excellent. But this is what we probably need to work on. You can't start it with the negative, because immediately they go on defense. And that's just the way it is with life and everything, not just with work. It's with your children and relationships. And I just sold that house and that big barn.
Whoa.
It's kind of a sad story because he built our house, and he was working and he passed out on the ladder and hit his head, and he's not doing well, and she can't take care of all this herself.
Oh,
And
man.
it's a beautiful, beautiful place. Sold it in 12 hours.
I'd say so. Yeah, it's gorgeous.
Seeing a lot of these, aren't we?
Yeah.
And a lot of the other.
Yeah. Well, we probably need to sign off.
Okay.
But I really appreciate you, and you mean a lot to me. And I got to tell you, I mean, I've told you already today some things I really admire about you and Myron, but what I love about you is, like, you're a no-nonsense person. You remind me of my mom in that sense. Like, you're very motherly towards me. You're very caring towards me. You take care of me.
Oh, I care about you.
But I also know you're not to be trifled with. And that's how my mom is, too. My mom grew up a hillbilly, no running water. She's the sweetest woman, but you don't mess with her. And I love that about you. You're what the kids call a boss bee, but you also have a big heart.
Yeah.
And you love helping people, and you love your family and your children. And I'm just honored that you came on the podcast today.
Oh, well, thank you. I've enjoyed it. This has been fun.
And we're going to have one heck of a party in August.
Yes, we will. Get the foam out and get it ready.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Celia. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Corey.
Thank you. All right, guys. Well, I would like to thank y'all for hanging around today and listening to my discussion with Celia Robertson. And I would like to thank Celia once again for coming on the pod. I really, really enjoyed hanging out with her today. I think a lot of her that probably came through in our discussion. I really admire her. I admire Myron that we talked about, her friends, her family, and it's just really cool to meet someone that has built something from the ground up and to learn from her. So thank you, Celia. That was awesome. And let me just tell you guys a little bit about next week. We got another just great episode lined up. I'm going to be talking to Brandon Allen of Allen Music. I worked for Brandon Allen for 8.5 years, and that was the job that was kind of my transition from always just having random jobs that had nothing to do with music to what I'm doing now. I worked for him teaching lessons. I sold guitars. I learned a lot about how to run a business from him. And basically all those things I learned over those 8.5 years, I'm using all of that now in my current career. So that's going to be a great episode. Make sure you tune in next week on November 25th for that. We're going to be talking about running the family business with Brandon Allen. All right, today's sponsors. You know them, I know them, we all love them. Etc. Coffee House. Make sure you guys hit up Etc. in Paducah if you haven't done it already. What in the world are you doing with your life? I'm not just blowing smoke. I'm not just bragging on them because they're the sponsor. Guys, I love them. I love their coffee. I love the atmosphere. They're good people. And you guys got to meet Levi a few weeks ago here on the pod. He is one of the owners and baristas. So make sure that you give them a try if you've never tried it before. Etc. Coffee House in Paducah, Kentucky. They have 2 locations. You will not be sorry. Trust me. And as always, Metropolis Music and Media. Just in case this is your first episode with me, let me tell you about Metropolis Music and Media, guys. That company owned and operated by Mr. Toby Glass. He's one of my best friends, super good dude. Toby can take care of any media needs that you have. Let's say you own a company like Celia and you need someone to come in and maybe help you with some promotional stuff, take some promotional videos, help you put together some reels for Instagram or Facebook. Toby is your guy. So contact Toby at Metropolis Music and Media for any media needs, sound system work, sound installations, wedding photos, anything. Metropolis Music and Media. Well, guys, I appreciate you. We've been having a great time. I don't know if this pod's ever really going to take off and get crazy numbers, but I'm having a great time doing it. I'm learning a lot from my friends and the people that I'm bringing on this podcast. It's awesome. I love it. So thank you guys for being faithful listeners. Make sure you tune in next week when I talk to my former boss and good friend, Mr. Brandon Allen. And remember, my name's Corey Evans. Even though I am not a rock star, I live a pretty rock and roll life. Peace.